And get started. Good afternoon. This is Ifan from the Strategic Day Trader, and this is your market wrap for July 13th, 2020. Q's down 2%, SPY down just 0.88 there, showing a little bit of strength to the Q's. We had a gap up in the Q's and SPY. You can see that gap got sold. So this is a special type of gap reversal. We call this gap disease. It's where the gap up is to all-time high. So that's kind of the defining factor of gap disease, gap up to all-time highs, and then that gap gets sold. So quite often when you come across something like this in an individual name, we are looking at a lot of times the high for quite a while, sometimes for all time. It's a pretty bearish event. We basically explored higher prices. Those higher prices were rejected. And not just a simple rejection like this topping tail that we've seen before, but actually got sold enough to break through support on the daily here. We can see it as well on the hourly, right? This area of support here is as it's digging through there. So what happens on these kind of gap ups is you do often trap also people who've been perhaps waiting for the market to get into the market to participate in this rally, and these new highs are where they finally say, I just can't take it anymore, I'll just get in, right? Only to see the reversal happen. So it's a pretty bearish event, a pretty bearish reversal. All right, so that is going to be enough to take out our bullish bias that we had coming into today. Okay, we came into today bullish on the market still. We had uptrends on every time frame here, and a pretty bearish event though going on. So that's going to put us at neutral for tomorrow. What I'm going to need to see is some continuation on this follow through as we come back in to some support. Typically, when we get these gap reversals, they don't happen later in the day. They typically happen right off the bat, right off in the morning, rejection of that gap up. So something a little bit different here. Don't think it necessarily means more bearish or more bullish or not as bearish as far as the reversal. Just not typical. That's all. Typically, when we get the reversal, it's that gap gets rejected right away. This actually moved up throughout the morning before coming in, so just a little bit different, but the chart's going to be the same going into tomorrow. All right, we did get this momentum sell-off, kind of an igniting sell-off. What I'll have to wait and see is we could get some more follow-through tomorrow. All right, down to the downside. We are into support though, which is why I'm not all out bearish going into tomorrow. If we do get some follow-through tomorrow in the morning, meaning we move lower some, that would be good, because the next rally will be a pretty good test of, can we recover from this gap disease? Can we recover from this rejection of the gap? Okay, and pretty harsh rejection, completely lost the gap and went negative. Okay, that's what we call a gap berry. And gap disease today, a specific kind of gap berry that comes from all-time highs. Okay, so it doesn't happen very often, gap disease, but here we do have an example of one. So pretty interesting reversal. That we'll have to see if we get follow through here on the hourly to give us some kind of bearish bias. So neutral going into tomorrow, bearish bar today, canceling out the bullish bias that we had coming into today. All right, and so we'll go into tomorrow more neutral. We'll see how this support holds. All right, a lot of time spent on the market, more than I normally do, because, you know, as we were kind of moving up for the last couple months, it was pretty straightforward. There were a couple of times where we needed to see follow through, and I outlined that. But, you know, it's been in an uptrend. This today, pretty interesting, something different, okay? Today, if you traded the open with me today, took a little bit longer to get going this morning. Had some swings to deal with, to manage, and things like that. But did get this call in here on the CEMI. Seemed like quite a few people took it as well, which is always great. We had a base breakout here on the 5. So you can see in the morning, I mean, there is a pullback here. That was okay to get. Really wanted to see how far this was going to go. I think it maxed out about 2.4. You can see there's void up above. I didn't really expect it to close the void. You can see even just to where we got to, which was 523 there. That was pretty nice. We did take some around 505. Another piece trailed around 504 or 503 after it kind of topped out. And then we held on to some to see if we would go back up, maybe make new highs. You can see that was the top there, 523. But once it started to roll over, that's when we kind of trailed the next piece. It trailed right around 504, 503. And then wanted to see if this would continue the uptrend here. And you can see it started to weaken, right? 20 MA started to curl over here. And then we got this kind of big drop here. And I decided we would go ahead and just trail to that, to 584. 484. Okay, and it ended up trailing underneath that. Okay, and which was fine. That was still trailing in the money on that runner piece. Got a couple R's on each of the first couple pieces, so that was good on this base breakout here. It did look like it may have a chance of going back up here once the 5 minutes started to curl back up underneath. I had an idea. I was considering playing it, but eventually rolled over with the market, so there was no kind of new play on that CEMI. Okay, the big miss for me in the afternoon here is the BOXL. If you traded with me in the morning, you know that this was one of the favorites. There were 3 favorites. This was one of them. And it didn't really go anywhere in the morning, so I was kind of waiting to see, are we going to break out over the highs or give some kind of setup? I don't play these low of the day bases here. And eventually it did transition here by putting in a higher low there, and then by breaking out, that's a higher high. So the entry there is fine. And then once we get that uptrend going, there's a buy setup right there that's already highlighted right off the 20 MA. So that was good to play. I think management would have been a challenge just because of how much this moves and how tight the stop was. So you probably have some decent size, and so it wouldn't have been the easiest to manage, but it was a bit of a miss. I did see it, kind of just didn't pull the trigger on it, but definitely should have. That's what I was a little bit worried about, was kind of the jumpiness, the sloppiness. But when one of your top 3 things that you're watching in the pre-market gives you as good of a setup as this did, not once but twice, and you don't play it, I do think that is a miss. So we'll have to be a little bit more focused later in the day. Yesterday, like I said, it took me a little bit longer to get going this morning and start executing day trades. So we'll see what we get tomorrow. Really pivotal time in the Qs this week as we head into earnings season. Starts at the end of this week, so pretty exciting. Should be looking forward to this week's trading, as I am. All right, so I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. That's going to do it for today's market wrap, and we'll see what the market brings us tomorrow. Have a good evening.